Cessna solved the deadliest problem in twin-engine flying, and pilots still rejected the airplane. It was safer, smarter, almost impossible to lose control in an engine failure. So why did pilots hate flying it? Back in the 1960s, twin-engine airplanes had status. They looked powerful, expensive, and professional. If you owned one, people assumed you were serious. But behind that image was a problem pilots genuinely feared, because when one engine failed, things got ugly fast. Traditional twins had engines mounted on the wings. Sounds normal, right? Until one suddenly quit during takeoff. Then all the remaining power came from one side of the airplane, violently pulling it sideways. Pilots called it asymmetric thrust, and in bad situations, it could trigger something terrifying: the VMC roll. Once that roll started, recovery sometimes became impossible. For a few seconds, the airplane basically wanted to kill you. That's why multi-engine training became brutal. Pilots constantly repeated the phrase, "dead foot, dead engine. One wrong correction, 1 second too late on the rudder." That was enough. Even experienced pilots lost control during engine-out emergencies. And here's the crazy part. Everybody accepted this as normal. Twin-engine airplanes were considered safer because they had two engines. But in reality, losing one engine could make them more dangerous than a normal single-engine aircraft, especially close to the ground. Cessna saw the problem differently. Instead of teaching pilots to survive asymmetric thrust, what if they removed asymmetric thrust completely? And that idea led to one of the strangest aircraft designs aviation had ever seen. When the airplane was finally revealed, pilots honestly didn't know what to think. At first glance, it looked normal. Then you noticed something weird. There were no engines on the wings. One engine sat in the nose, and another sat behind the cabin. One pulled, one pushed. The airplane looked like somebody forgot where the second engine was supposed to go. This was the Cessna 337 Skymaster, and unlike every traditional twin, both engines sat directly on the aircraft's centerline. That changed everything. Because if one engine failed, the airplane didn't violently yaw sideways anymore. It stayed stable. No sudden roll. No wrestling the controls. No terrifying asymmetric thrust trying to flip the airplane over during takeoff. Cessna had basically solved the biggest safety flaw in twin-engine flying. And on paper, the idea was brilliant. The FAA thought so, too. The aircraft became so unique that regulators created a special centerline thrust rating just for it. Pilots didn't even need the same engine-out demonstrations required in traditional twins, because the airplane behaved completely differently. Cessna leaned hard into that safety image. The Skymaster wasn't marketed as flashy or aggressive. It was marketed as smart, safer, more forgiving. The airplane for pilots who wanted twin-engine redundancy without the deadly downside. Honestly, it should have been a huge success. But then pilots actually started flying it. And suddenly the excitement faded fast. Because while the Skymaster solved one huge problem, it created a completely different one nobody expected. It felt weird. The problem wasn't speed. It wasn't reliability either. It was psychological. Pilots got inside the Skymaster and immediately noticed things felt off, especially the rear engine. Imagine sitting in an airplane while another engine screams directly behind your head. Every vibration suddenly felt suspicious. Every noise made pilots wonder if something back there was failing. And unlike wing-mounted engines, you couldn't easily see it. That bothered people more than Cessna expected. In traditional twins, pilots could glance outside and check their engines visually. Smoke, fire, damage, you could spot problems quickly. But the rear engine sat hidden behind the cabin. If something sounded wrong, pilots mostly just guessed. That uncertainty messed with confidence. Then came the maintenance issues. The rear engine had cooling problems. Mechanics hated working on it because access was awkward compared to normal twins. Repairs took longer. Costs climbed. Owners slowly realized the airplane wasn't as simple as it first appeared. But honestly, appearance mattered too. And this part sounds shallow, but it mattered a lot in aviation culture. The Skymaster looked strange. Traditional twins looked sleek and executive. The Skymaster looked experimental, almost awkward. Some pilots loved that uniqueness. Others hated it instantly. And in aviation, confidence matters. Pilots trusted airplanes that felt familiar. The Skymaster challenged decades of instinct overnight. So now the safest twin in the sky had a reputation problem. And then, something unexpected happened. The military started paying attention. The Vietnam War changed the Skymaster's story completely. Because suddenly, the airplane's weird design became an advantage. The U.S. Air Force adopted it as the O-2 Skymaster for forward air control and reconnaissance missions. These weren't safe flights either. Pilots flew low over jungle terrain, searching for enemy movement, while ground fire came up from below. And unlike fast fighter jets, these crews stayed exposed for long periods. That required visibility, stability, survivability. The Skymaster had all three. Its huge windows gave pilots incredible views of the terrain below. Spotting movement through dense jungle became easier, but the real advantage appeared when things went wrong. If one engine got damaged, the aircraft could still keep flying without violently fighting itself mid-air. In combat, that mattered enormously. The same centerline thrust design that civilian pilots distrusted was suddenly helping military crews survive dangerous missions. And pilots started respecting it. Not because it looked cool, because it worked. Some crews described the airplane as strangely forgiving under pressure. Stable, predictable, hard to kill. And in war, those qualities become priceless very quickly. For a while, the Skymaster finally found its purpose. But here's the twist. Even after proving itself in combat, civilian pilots still weren't fully convinced. Because aviation isn't driven by logic alone, and that became the airplane's biggest problem. By the time the Skymaster returned from Vietnam, the civilian aviation market had already made up its mind. Pilots still preferred traditional twins. Part of it was image. Traditional aircraft looked powerful and prestigious sitting on a runway. The Skymaster looked unconventional. Buyers spending serious money wanted airplanes that felt fast, sleek, and familiar. The Skymaster felt practical instead. And practicality rarely excites people emotionally. Then there was performance. The airplane wasn't slow, but compared to some competitors, it didn't feel thrilling either. It traded speed and style for stability and safety. That sounds smart on paper, but emotionally? Many buyers wanted excitement, and the maintenance reputation never fully disappeared. Owners kept hearing stories about cooling issues and expensive repairs. Mechanics still complained about the rear engine setup. Over time, the aircraft developed this strange identity where pilots respected the engineering, but didn't actually want to own one. Which is honestly kind of tragic, because Cessna had solved a real problem. They just couldn't solve human psychology. People say they want innovation. But when innovation looks unfamiliar, most people instinctively pull away from it, even if it's objectively safer. And that's exactly what happened to the Skymaster. But decades later, opinions started changing. Today, the Skymaster has something it never really had back then: perspective. Modern pilots look back at the airplane very differently now, especially experienced multi-engine pilots who understand how dangerous traditional engine-out situations can become. Suddenly, Cessna's strange push-pull design doesn't seem crazy anymore. It seems smart. Many owners absolutely love the aircraft today. Not because it's perfect, it isn't, but because the centerline thrust system genuinely worked. Engine failures that would terrify pilots in conventional twins felt dramatically more manageable in the Skymaster. That left a lasting impression. The airplane slowly built a loyal cult following. Aviation historians now describe it as one of Cessna's boldest engineering experiments ever. Not because it sold perfectly, but because it challenged an industry that had accepted dangerous flaws for decades. And maybe that's why this airplane still fascinates people today. Because the Skymaster became more than an aircraft story. It became a human story. Cessna solved one of aviation's deadliest design problems, and people rejected the solution anyway. Not because it failed, but because it felt unfamiliar. And honestly, that happens way more often than we realize. So maybe the Skymaster wasn't a failure at all. Maybe it was just too far ahead of its time. And if you enjoyed this story, let me know what other forgotten aircraft deserve another look.